Hey everyone, Sycra here, and today I'm going to be doing a redesign of Wolverine from the X-Men. Now, it's just for fun, it's not for anything real. I just figured it would be nice to do a redesign. I actually got the idea to do Wolverine from this hangout I had with Meryl Kazanjian and Evan Burse. And so rather than just do my own or Wolverine in my own style, I thought, well, maybe I'll give a shot redesigning him. And yeah, so I started out with like a silhouette. It's pretty much just like a shape, and then I can use a background to actually chisel out the silhouette. And here I'm putting in some lighter area for the background to pop out the figure more and add more of an atmosphere. And in my how to draw interesting poses video, I show how to make, just poses less boring. In this one, I actually wanted to keep the pose pretty boring, just because in a design, what you want to show off is the design itself and not so much the posing. And usually having interesting poses with a lot of dynamic twists and turns tends to cover up parts of the design. So I kind of wanted just a straight view. So here I'm defining the face and adding some teeth, some rendering. I wanted to have his like mutton chop whisker things showing, so I kind of made the mask have space for that. This design is kind of based, or not based, but the Wolverine I grew up on was the 90s one, especially from the TV series. So that's what I was looking at first before I started on this. I looked at that quickly just to get a sense of what his outfit looked like, and I also looked at this reference because it's really cool. And yeah, so here I go working on the arms. Now, I had quite a bit of trouble with the arms, mainly because of the anatomy. It's easier for me to get the anatomy down when I just start drawing and kind of finish the drawing. This way of developing the silhouette first, what happened is that I had like the gauntlet or glove or whatever area, and then, or bracers I guess it's called, and I had the shoulder pads, so it was making it a bit difficult to see exactly where all the muscles were supposed to attach. Now here I'm adding in a lighter area, so I have a good sense of, or a good range of values. Now I intend to make this all yellow in the front, and this is pretty much what I was thinking. Well, what if I take the design and make it like the 90s cartoon? So I made this version where it's it's pretty much designed for animation, and just wanted to see if it would work simplified, because sometimes when you render things, you can make them look good, but the design itself doesn't look good. It's just like you can make a good pose, you can make good lighting, and render it so it appears better than it actually is. So I just wanted to see if the design works, and I don't know, maybe you guys can let me know what you think of this. Anyway, so I extended the canvas just a bit because I wanted to fit in his claws, and I just dragged over the background using Control T, and then I just scaled it, just adding some scratches and stuff here and there. I'm not really sure what a lot of this stuff is, like on his belt and even in the glove area. I just kind of feel like I want it to be chunky. if I was to develop this further, I would definitely think about exactly what those shapes are and give it more meaning. Here I'm adding some backlighting, so it just pops the silhouette out even more. So you pretty much have like a dark shape against a middle tone background with white around it, and that's really going to pop it out. So I'm kind of trying to stick a bit with realism when I think about the lighting, but at the same time, I'm not going to be limited by realism. Like if something looks better if it's not realistic, then I'll just go with that. With the boots, I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing. I just kind of wanted them to be more militaristic than the 90s cartoon version, which I keep referencing. I know there's been tons of redesigns of Wolverine over the years. The one that I know of most recently is the Marko Djurjevic version, and the ones in the movies. And I feel like, I don't know if it's just a sign of the times, but he's been getting a bit more sleek in his uniform, and everything's somewhat more realistic. And I guess it's just because of the shows I would watch from the 80s and the 90s, where people would have big shoulder pads with spikes everywhere, and it didn't have to be so sleek. It didn't have to really make sense. It was more like, well, this is cool, so let's put this there. And I don't know, it's a bit charming in a way, but it's also like cool for the sake of being cool. And I have no problem with that. If you look at series like the Final Fantasy series and look at the artwork, a lot of that stuff, it doesn't make sense. People have, belts in all sorts of weird places, and it's just really, the designs are just cool for the sake of cool. And some people prefer things to be more practical and have purpose, and that's great too. I like both. So I used a bit of the soft brush in the background, and I had to reposition his head because it wasn't centered properly. Now, when things are a little bit shifted towards a 3/4 view, like this isn't exactly 3/4, but at the same time it's not a perfect front view, then you really have to pay attention to things like the head placement. Because if the neck is in the middle of the body, that doesn't mean the head is going to be, if it's turned, right, it's going to appear more to one side or the other, because just because of the perspective. Now here I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing with the legs. I thought maybe he's wearing like jeans at first, and then I thought, no, I should tie in some of that yellow into his legs. And it wasn't yellow at the time, but I intend to make it yellow. So here I've done my coloring thing where I put in a new layer or adjustment layer set to color balance, and I'm just doing a color layer to get in the yellow. But when you use a color layer, it only affects the hue and not the value. And I felt the value was a bit too light, so I switched to an overlay layer, and that will allow me to affect both the color and the value and the saturation. So I tend to use both overlay and color, and I'm going to experiment because I haven't been doing that much before, using different layer modes, but I figure, if you have a tool, might as well use it. I think I'll try different things like soft light layers, for example. It's really one of these things where I feel like, I don't know, before I was very much opposed to using what I felt were tricks. Especially with layer modes, I kind of felt a lot of them were just gimmicks. And I mean, you can get carried away with it, but at the same time, there's that in everything. So here I just fixed the arm. I needed to draw it for myself to get a sense of where things should be, and there's still some issues with anatomy, but I decided to just move on. because I don't have too much time for this one. But if it was a serious gig, I would definitely, really work on my anatomy a bit more. So as I was saying, with things like using digital tools to their maximum, and using things like overlays or texture brushes or things, the reason I've started to be more comfortable with that idea, whereas before I kind of didn't like it too much, was just that I realized using traditional just how much of that there is. Even when I use, if I'm using charcoal or pencil, I tend to use pretty soft leads, usually around. The thing I like to draw with the most right now is just my mechanical pencil with 3B lead. It's nothing special, it's just, it gets the job done. I don't have to sharpen it. So, but depending on how much pressure I get and depending on the texture of the paper, I can get all sorts of effects. So, just, I think, take advantage of whatever tool you have. And so here I'm adding more metal. I don't know exactly what that metal is. I figure it's probably not gold, maybe like brass or something. I don't know how practical it would be to be wearing this, especially because the whole midsection's exposed. And if you're wearing armor, you'd probably like to cover that part up. But again, it goes back to this idea of just, well, it looks cool. So, and maybe he's so badass that he wants to show off his whole midsection. Like, I don't care. I'm not even protecting my intestines, heart, whatever. Well, his heart's kind of protected, but yeah. So I had a rip in his clothing. I'm gonna put that back in. I just got rid of it so I could paint the body easier without having to paint around it. And here I'm just strengthening some of the lights. I'm using color dodge on my brush in kind of like a dark gray. And the thing with color dodge is you just have to make sure you're on the layer, the same layer as the image itself. Now here what I'm just doing is I felt the skin needed to be a little bit lighter. So I just used like a soft light layer, I guess, and lowered the opacity with a lighter color. And here I'm adding in that rip in his fabric. Now he has his mutant healing factor, so I figure there's not going to actually be a scar or anything because that's going to heal up, but the dried blood would still be on his shirt. And pretty much winding down now. This image is quite finished, and if you like this stuff, if you haven't already, just if you're subscribed to me, cool. If not, and you like this, then subscribe. Thanks for watching.